Hey friend, Colin here from Sumthins Recording, and today I'm going to show you how to mix organ in 2 simple steps. Today we're going to be exploring mixing an organ track with just one EQ move and one compressor. And this is going to help you sit your organ in the mix in a very fast and effective manner. So you can keep moving through your mix, you can keep your workflow, and you can keep the energy going. Just hit it and move on here. But before we dive in, if you're ready to go a little bit deeper into the mixing process in its entirety and really start to hone your workflow as an audio engineer, then I have just the thing for you. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and it's just a simple PDF that will walk you through the entire mixing process step by step to help you get professional and radio-ready mixes without any more of the hassle and without any more of the guesswork. It is a completely free guide, and you can download it below using the link in the video description. Now let's jump in here and take a look at this track. I'm going to play you the mix here as it stands, and then I'll solo up the organ so you can hear how the organ sits by itself. So here's our finished mix for this track.
I'll send my love on a shooting star. I'll send it fast and I'll send it far. Hear your voice in my sleep at night, but only in my dreams could it be this right. To me it won't never be the same, so please come back. I miss you, Jane. I'll send my love on.
You can hear it's a pretty big organ sound still with just one EQ, one compressor on it. It's got that nice high mid-range to it. It's spread nice and wide. It has some vibe to it, some analog vibe. Let me take off all the processing here and you can hear where we started. It's not a big difference, but we don't need a big difference here. It's a good sounding track to begin with, and a little bit of EQ, and a little bit of some nice analog compression, and it sits exactly where we want it inside this track. So I'll take off the compressor, and we're gonna talk about our EQ. There's one move here we're doing on the EQ because that is all we need. Sometimes it's very easy with something as simple as organ to go overboard, cut some low mid, boost some top end, boost some high mids to bring out more of the organ, but don't do more than you have to. If a high pass takes care of it, a high pass takes care of it. So all we're doing here on our organ is rolling off that bottom end, reaching just a touch into the low mid area. So our organ's not too heavy and it's not taking up frequencies that we need to take up with bass guitar, bottom end on the piano, on the kick drum. And it's not eating up so much of this 200 hertz area in the low mids where the bottom end on our guitars, that low heat on our guitars is going to be sitting. So take a listen here without the high pass, and then I'll kick it in. We're at 224 hertz with a 12 dB per octave slope. So here's without it, and then I'll kick it in. Just a small, subtle move like this takes off enough of the bottom end and enough of the low mid area to give us plenty of room for more of that high mid area to come through on the organ sound. So we don't need to boost up on the top end. We don't need to boost that high mid area because by removing some of the frequencies that we don't need, we have more room for the frequency that are left to shine through inside the track here. So let me start here. I'm going to start back down, and all we're going to do is we're going to ease up this high pass slowly but surely. You can see all we're doing here in practice is we're going just up into where the bottom end frequencies on our organ are. That's where we're leaving it. So just pulling it up till we hear, okay, the bottom end's gone, and then we pull off some of that low mid area. Take a listen. That's where it felt good to me inside the track. But if you wanted to go further, if you didn't want so much maybe low mid left on your organ track, you could go further and even further emphasize the high mid area. We've thinned out the organ quite a bit here, but what it does is it further emphasizes that high mid area. So we're not taking up so much of the low mid frequency, and we're just adding maybe what we want for the organ. I wanted to keep a little bit more of the low mid area left on this organ, so it did feel nice and fat. So I left this down around 220. We're at 224 hertz here. Now, the next move we're making on this organ is something I've started doing more recently. Sometimes what I do is I just leave that EQ. I just throw the EQ on and it feels good to me. I move on from there. But lately I've been really enjoying throwing this Fairchild emulation, this FC670 from PreSonus on here. It gives it some analog vibe, and to me it enhances the depth of the organ while also maybe controlling any dynamic range that we do have here on the organ. So take a listen. I've got it on the fastest time constant. I've pulled the threshold up to about the middle here, but what I've done is I've pushed the input gain a little bit further up so we get some saturation from the plug-in here. Take a listen without, and then I'll kick it on. With this plugin, it's not so much about how much compression we're getting because the organ's not jumping all over the place volume-wise. It stays pretty consistent even if we zoom out here on the track. It jumps a little bit from our verse to our chorus, but that's dynamic energy we want to keep, right? We want that energy lift going into our chorus. So it's not so much about evening out the organ as it is about adding analog vibe to the organ here. That's why we're pushing our input gain. I like to get a little bit of movement on the needle. I like that little bit of flutter we have from the compressor not quite being fast enough to keep up with this really consistent organ. It's trying to hit and then let go, but there's never quite a let go moment for it, which gives it some nice movement. But I also feel like a Fairchild has always given me a little bit more width. So it's giving us that depth, but it's also adding some width to me, I feel like. Take a listen one more time without it, and then I'm going to kick the compressor back in. Pay attention to the depth on our organ as well as the width. A Fairchild emulation like this always helps to give a simple instrument like an organ that's pretty consistent and pretty even, a bigger footprint and a bigger presence inside the track. So let's do a full A-B one more time on our organ here.
Send my love on a shooting star. I'll send it fast and I'll send it far. Hear your voice in my sleep at night, but only in my dreams could it be this right. To me it won't ever be the same, so please come back. I miss you, Jane.
One move on EQ here, just a high pass filter to help that high mid area come through a little bit better. We get rid of any muddiness, any heaviness on our organ, and then just a touch of compression from this Fairchild emulation enhances the depth as well as the width of our organ track. I hope that was helpful for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you're ready to take your mixes to the next level and really start dialing in your workflow as an audio engineer, then I have just the tool for you, and it is completely free. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and you can download it below to start creating more professional mixes in less time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.